There we go. We are live with today's 220-1101 Core 1 A Plus study group. It is our pre-show. As you can see, we're 10 minutes before the top of the hour, so we're just getting things going here, trying to get things set up here so that I can get the microphone in front of me. That looks good, and kind of see what's going on in front of the camera. What else do we have? We need to get a couple things going here. I haven't got my recordings going yet. We aren't even recording the live stream. Let's do that. Starting up on that one. Starting up on that. Hyperdecks are going. Now we got our controllers going down there. You can see the Cylons are rolling around down there. It's difficult. I think I have the camera a little bit higher than I normally would. I need to bring that down just a bit. We'll do that for tomorrow. Hope everybody's doing well. Hey, chat room. How's everybody doing? Thanks for being here. Come on in, get yourself situated, get something nice to relax in, sit down, lay down. I'm not sure if this is one where we sit forward or we sit back. It's one of those. We're doing both, I guess. Make sure you check in with what's going here. Hello, Malk. Good to see you again. Thanks for checking in. Hope things are going well where you are. Okay, I think I can pause my video here. I don't need to see the video that I'm sending. I'm good there. Everything else looks good with cameras. Those are all set up and ready to go. I think we're in pretty good shape. I still do not have, I've been working on sort of rebuilding things in the studio, and I changed things with the audio just a bit, changed the audio chain, as they call it, just a little bit, just a smidge. And so that simplified things for me on this side, but there are other things I need to adjust. We have to keep working on changing things. Every time I tweak one thing, there's other things over here that have to be changed. But everything's looking good. Our cache, our data rates are good. I did an internet upgrade while I have been gone. So I went from a much slower speed. We're now at 1 gig bidirectional. So I have plenty of upgrade bandwidth at this point for our 6 gig is what we're sending right now. 6 gigabits per second are what we are sending now. And I have 1,000 gigabits per second. So we're in pretty good shape. I think I did a test yesterday, and where I am with the type of router that I have, I think I'm actually limited to probably half a gig. So I gotta work on that. I gotta work on why my router is not able to give me a good downstream. There's always something, right? We'll figure it out. We'll get there. Other folks that are here and checking in, I should probably put up the link. So if you wanted to, on the map behind me, you can kind of see people are starting to check in and put their buttons on the map. I should probably put that in full screen so you could actually see it. There we go. That's what it's supposed to look like on your side. So you can sort of see where people are plugging away. We have some folks that are out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Welcome from your boat, I'm guessing. Is it a rowboat? Are you on a ship? Are you on a container ship? There's a story there somewhere. We need to figure that out. Let's see where it goes. But things are coming along nicely here. The internet upgrade was a big change. Up to this point, I guess previously we were running at a 25 megabit upload speed, limited to that. And it worked fine for years. Over the last study groups we did, I had moved it up to 100 megabits per second. But now I just decided to open it all the way up because there's some things I'm working on too. But I definitely need to work on that camera, bring it down. See, there's always these things. When you start touching things, you start changing where things are. A lot of other things change along with it. So I end up tweaking that and like, oh, we should probably move that. You know, it would be good if that was here. So that's what I end up doing is going through and figuring out, is everything where it should be? I don't know. We'll figure it out. But to your perspective, I upgraded all of these speeds, but our data rates really, because I'm sending 1080p to YouTube. And then they are taking the 1080p and then cutting it up into pieces of different bandwidths and sending it off to you. So it's kind of a two-step process every time we do this. I send the mainstream and then YouTube breaks it up. And when they break it up, it takes about 5 or 6, 7 seconds for you to see it, which is actually quite good. When I turn on 4K for everything, the delay is more like 20, 25 seconds, which doesn't work so well for what we are doing. I like more interactivity. When we're answering those questions and pushing the button, I don't want to say the question and then have to wait 20 seconds before we ever see anything happening. So having that very fast response is good, but that's why all of the live stream you always see at 1080p. You never see 4K for any of the live stream, and that's why. I am recording 4K here, down here on my video recorders. I'm capturing 4K, but you just never see it. And 1080p, really, for what we're doing here, is probably just fine. You're probably not even noticing it's not 4K because there's not a lot of detail in what we are doing here. There's big things on the screen. The letters are large. It's not that big of a deal. 4 minutes to go before we get started. Things here are looking good. I still don't have the right. I have a headphone amp that I have left in another place. So I have to bring my headphone amp and put it back in here. I'm running on a temporary headphone amp that has just a ton of noise in it, which you don't hear, but I hear. So it's introducing just noise into my headphone. So it's just a hiss, just a constant hiss of that. I might turn that down just a little bit so that doesn't bother me too much. But I like to be able to hear myself so that I can hear what you hear. Because sometimes I'll do this. I'm talking and talking, but I have the mic turned off and not even realize it. I wouldn't know it unless I had this in my ear and I could think, oh, wait, I'm not hearing myself. That's what's going on there. We have all new questions for you today. If you're here for the Core 1 study group, welcome. Come on in. We're doing questions and answers today from the Core 1 A+ exam. That's the 2201101. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Get things going. I hope everybody's ready to go. We got all new questions as we do every month, so they'll be fun to go through. Interesting thing to note that later this week, we were supposed to do our Core 2 study group on Thursday. As we sit here live, this is a Tuesday, and the Core 2 study group was supposed to be Thursday. I moved it up a day. So if you're here on this Tuesday for Core 1, Core 2 is tomorrow. It's on Wednesday. So if you want to come back tomorrow for more new questions, we'll have those ready for you as well. I've got questions in this first hour. The second hour, I'll be taking questions from you. You can always go on, follow the link that's on your screen. It's the one right here, right down behind me here, right there. That's the link, professormesser.com/QA. That link, there is a tab on the top where you can submit questions now for answers in the second hour. So you've got places to go there. You can always at any time submit a question for that. Do I have sessions for Security Plus? I do. You can always check the calendar. Go to professormesser.com/calendar or follow the calendar link at the top of the Professor Messer website. Our Network Plus study group is next week on Wednesday. The Security Plus study group is the week after on Wednesday. So I've got those already set up. Those times can change, so always keep checking back to the calendar, professormesser.com/calendar, so that you know exactly when those might be. Sometimes things change. I don't know what to tell you. It's the chaos that surrounds me. Requires me sometimes to change dates and times, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. We somehow managed to make it happen. It's very unusual for me to not do a study group. We got less than a minute to go. I'm doing my last checks here. All the video looks good. I'm so happy with the way the videos worked out in this studio right now. I did a lot of changes to cabling and equipment. I changed the video chain as well, and I'm so happy with how that's turned out. A lot of problems I was having with little things that you didn't see but that I saw have been solved, which I love. Now we just have to figure out how to make all this work for you today. And we'll be getting through that in a moment. I also have a lot of audio work I need to do in this room. There's more things I need to put on the walls here to make things a little bit better from my perspective. But I think I'm the one sort of bringing it down to that level, to that detailed level. Let's get some light turned down just a little bit here. We have hit the top of the hour. Let's get the keynote up and running on my screen. Let's look for a green light. Did we get the green light? We did. There it is. Play right there. It's time for a live stream, everybody. Let's turn off the lower third and get things started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 2024 Professor Messer 220-1101 Core 1 A+ study group. This is our monthly study group where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. And if you know what the topics are in those objectives and you've studied them, I suspect you're going to do just fine on our quiz today. In this first hour, I will be asking you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. And in the second hour, I'm going to take your questions. So if there's any questions that you would like to submit, you can always go to this main link. It's the same link you use to submit your answers, is also the link you can use to submit questions for the second hour. And it's on your screen right there at professormesser.com/QA. That is indeed the link that you will use to answer questions. So as you are settling in and you would like to follow along, if you are here live, simply pop open a new browser window or a browser that's on your mobile device and visit the link at the bottom of your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Now, if you do that, there will be a question waiting for you. We refer to that question as our rewind question because it is a question from last month. We're rewinding back a little bit from last month to ask a question. This one is a question that asks, a development team is building a cloud-based inventory application using pre-built modules. Which of the following would best describe this model? Would this be, let's see if I can move myself out of the way here so we can look at the answers. Would it be SaaS, IaaS, VDI, metering, or PaaS? Now, if you think you know the answers, the way that we do this in the study group is we don't answer in the chat room. Instead, we go to the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. That's the link right there at the bottom. That's the link you want to use to submit your question. Please no hints in the chat room. Please no answers in the chat room. Instead, go to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. We're going to come back to this question in just a bit. We have a few other things that we would like to go through, and then we're going to find out the answer to that one. Thank you so much for being here. We do one of these study groups every month. We do a study group for our Core 1A+, our Core 2A+. There are live streams for Network Plus and a study group also for Security Plus. So there's always something going on here. You can always find out when the next live stream is going to be by going to professormesser.com/calendar. Also let you know that all of our live streams and our training courses are available to watch on our YouTube channel. You can, of course, find us at professormesser.com/YouTube. We also have daily pop quiz questions for A+. You can find those on the service formerly known as Twitter. Go to professormesser.com/Twitter or follow us on Instagram by going to professormesser.com/Instagram. Sometime during this first hour, I'm going to give you instructions and information on how you could earn a 1-hour webinar category CEU by simply watching what we're doing today and hanging out with us. So stick around for that. Be listening in sometime during this first hour, and I'll give you all of the details on how you can earn that 1 hour of a webinar CEU. I'll also describe what a webinar CEU is, that continuing education unit, when we get to that point too. Today, we're going to be talking about the 220-1101 exam. This is part of a pair of exams that you have to pass to earn your A+ certification. These current versions of these exams were released on April the 20th of 2022, which means the estimated retirement for these exams will probably be October of next year. So you've got plenty of time to work on your studies to earn your A+ certification. This is where you should be, and this is the version of the exam you should be working towards. The exam itself is a 90-minute exam. You've got plenty of time when you work on the exam to get through these questions. It's a maximum of 90 questions you might get on your exam. And it's on a scale, it's graded on a scale from 100 to 900. And for the 1101, you need to score a 675. So that's the numbering scheme that is used, the grading scheme that is used by CompTIA. And once you earn both of those exams, you pass both the Core 1 and the Core 2, you are A+ certified, and that certification is good for 3 years. Also let you know that on the exam itself, the Core 1 exam, the topics that will be covered are mobile devices, networking, hardware, virtualization and cloud computing, and hardware and network troubleshooting. All of these are in the exam objectives, and the questions we cover today will come from all of those different categories. So we got a few things to go through. At the end of this live stream, when I hit the stop button, and a copy of this is automatically configured and enabled on YouTube so that you're able to watch the replay immediately. I also post an audio only version of this in a replay form that's in podcast format. So you can go to professormesser.com/podcast and add our A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus study groups. Or if you're part of an existing streaming service like Spotify, for example, you can simply search for Professor Messer and all of our live streams will appear on the Spotify list as well. So a lot of different ways that you could find us and replay this live stream. Also let you know that about a day or so after this live stream, my marketing manager, Lori, listens to this whole thing. Sorry, Lori, you have to go through everything. Hope things are going well. She is listening and putting in all of the timestamps for the questions, answers, and the other things that we do during the live stream. You can also find those on our YouTube channel in the YouTube video description, so you can jump to exactly what you are looking for. Also let you know that when we're not doing a live stream, you can find us over on Discord. This is our chat-based service where you can find me and a lot of other people studying for their CompTIA exams. There's a way that you could build out your own study group on our Discord. You click a button, other people can join, you can manage the entire process, and all of you can go through videos and other topics and learn together, because sometimes having someone help you with the studies makes things go so much better. So you can find that at our Discord. If you'd like to join, find it at professormesser.com/Discord. Also let you know that if you live in the US or Canada, we have vouchers that have already been discounted. Now you could go to the CompTIA website and pay full price for these, or you could go to professormesser.com/vouchers and get a discount that's already built into the website. You don't need a code. You don't need a coupon. You don't have to add any extensions to your browser. All you have to do is visit professormesser.com/vouchers. And with the voucher update, you'll not only get a discounted voucher, but I even give you a little bit more, because if you buy the voucher from my site, you get a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. This ebook is one I wrote that covers all of these tips and tricks that I've accumulated through the years when I sit down to take my certification exams. And so I documented everything. Maybe some of the tips you know about, maybe some of the tips you haven't thought of before. They're all in this ebook. You can't buy this ebook on my website. The only way that you can get this ebook is to either purchase a copy of my Success Bundle or buy a voucher from my site. You can find this all at professormesser.com/vouchers. So now let's see that question we asked before. That question is, a development team is building a cloud-based inventory application using pre-built modules. Which of the following would best describe this model? Would it be SaaS, IaaS, VDI, metering, or PaaS? Got a few options available to you there. And you could see, let's see what you chose on this. And we're going to stop the polling. And when this comes up, you can see that 61% of you say the answer is PaaS. I will tell you that that is a much larger number than we had last month. So I think we may have even learned something since the last time we did this, or maybe we're just really good at guessing it. 24% of you say it's SaaS, 12% say IaaS, only 2% for VDI, and 0% for metering. The real key with this question was the pre-built modules. If there's some work that you have to do to build your own application, then it is not software as a service. Software as a service is everything's already done for you. You simply log in and you can use Google Mail, for example, or Yahoo Mail, or Outlook.com. Those are services that are already built. You don't have to write any code. You don't have to have a development team. You just automatically get email. And because all of that is already done, that would clearly be software as a service. If you're putting it together yourself, you need platform as a service. That's the type of service that you're using in the cloud because it's giving you a place to build the application. It's even giving you some pre-built modules that you can use to help make the application go very, very quickly. So make sure you have a look at those different cloud models. They are in our 220.11.01 course under section 4.1. I have a video called Cloud Models that steps you through all of these. And platform as a service is a very popular type of platform of cloud-based service. And it's one that if you're building your own apps, you're probably using platform as a service to be able to do that. Hopefully that's given you some ideas. And in fact, 61% of you, almost 62% of you got that one right. And that's much better than we did last month. So I think we did exceptional on that question. That got us off on the right foot. I think now we should look at some brand new questions. And of course, I have for you brand new questions. The very first question of our study group every month is a performance-based question. Some of you may not even realize this if you've not taken a CompTIA exam before, is that the first set of questions on your exam will not be multiple choice. So we just did a multiple choice question. There it is. So there was a question and multiple choices to select from. But most of the exam will be multiple choice, but there will be a handful of questions at the beginning of the exam that are not multiple choice. And if you don't know about it, this could throw you a little bit at the beginning of the exam. What CompTIA gives you is questions that are anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might be putting you at a command prompt and asking you to perform a function. It might be a matching question. You might have to put things in a particular order. It might be drag and drop question. It's just any other type of question, except what this one, the interesting part, is that the questions that we're working with just aren't multiple choice. So I have for you today a performance-based question. Our performance-based question of the month is match the printer to the description. So I have for you 5 different printers, and I have for you 5 different descriptions. So unlike if you've been on previous study groups, you're probably seen before that you've gotten questions that are sometimes might have more answers than choices, or they might have more choices than answers. You have to double up some of them. So when that happens, you might get some questions right and some questions wrong. You certainly could do the same thing here, but it's a one-to-one match. So I made it slightly easier for you on this time through. That's not always going to be like that. It's really just this time when we're dealing with this particular month of pop quiz questions. Let's see how you do with this one. I have for you 5 different printers. They are thermal, impact, 3D, inkjet, and laser. And I have for you 5 different descriptions. They are output is created by heating and layering filament. One of the second is drops of pigments are placed on a page. The third, which I guess is answer C, is print head pushes through an ink ribbon to create output. Answer D is an image is constructed in memory before printing. And the last one is specially treated paper is used to display output. Now I want you to match all of those to thermal, impact, 3D, inkjet, or laser. Each one will have one of those answers. So it really is a matching question. You can, of course, go here. This is follow this link. Make sure you don't answer in the chat room. Instead, you want to follow the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. I'm watching some of the answers come in now. A number of you are doing. Now, if you think they're already in order, you don't have to write out everything that's on the page. You can simply put 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E if you want to do that. Now, that's not the answers, but hopefully this is one that you can quickly add those to the list. And in fact, you could probably just put them in the order. As it might be. We're going to step through each one of these and get an idea of what they might be. So submit your answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, and lock in. More importantly, when you lock in your answer, make a note of what you remember the answer to be, because we don't show that afterwards. And I'm not summarizing everybody's answers on this one because it is a matching question. I don't have a way to do that online, at least not easily. So I just tend to have it as a fill in the blank sort of answer. And then we figure the rest out once we get it all in there. Printers are a big part of the exam. There's a huge section in the hardware part of the exam objectives. So you do have to know how these printers work. You have to have some understanding what's going on under the surface, under the cover of the printer. And it helps you, of course, with troubleshooting if you know from the beginning how the printer actually operates. So let's see how you did with this one. A number of people, we got a lot of answers already in. So let's step through each of these and see what we think they might be. We'll start with the very first one, which is a thermal printer. And if I was going to look at the list of everything that we had listed there, the next, the best possible matching for that one, I think would be E. That's specially treated papers used to display the output. And that's exactly true on a thermal printer. The paper itself, very much like the receipt printer that you might get when you go to a store, has a special coating on it that when you heat that paper, it makes a color or darkness on the paper so that you're able to easily read text. So it's able to heat up where it wants the text to be. And then when you finally get that output, you can see where the heat happened to be. So that specially treated paper changes colors when you heat it. That's why we don't put those papers on the dashboard of your car. Try that. Take a receipt from somewhere you've been that's using thermal paper, put that on the dash of your car, and then come back in an hour and you'll see it's just turned black because of that heat is what's happened. So hopefully it's given you an idea for that. Let's do the next one on our list, which was the impact printer. An impact printer is one, as the name implies, is pushing through a ribbon. Usually it is a fabric-based ribbon that has ink in it, and it's pushing through the ribbon to make connection with the paper on the other side. And that's how we're able to get the ink from the ribbon onto the paper itself. So very much like an old school typewriter that is using some type of impact to be able to make this. It's pushing through the ink and creating that on the output. That would absolutely be an impact printer. Next on our list is a 3D printer, going from some of the oldest style printers to some of the newest style printers. And 3D printers are certainly very new. 3D printers work, as also the name implies, in a three-dimensional form. So you have to build out the layers to create what the final 3D model might be. And that's done by taking filament that is in a solid form. In many cases, one style of 3D printer uses this filament in a solid form, heats up the filament, puts it exactly where we want it to be in this 3D model. And then when that filament cools, it becomes hard again. So that makes it very easy to sort of mold the filament where we want it to be. There's other styles of 3D printers as well. We go through those other styles on that. So another example of how there's different ways to accomplish this depending on the type of 3D printer you might be. This happens to be one of those. Next on our list is an inkjet printer. Inkjet printers, this one is definitely associated with ink. The term jet is kind of an odd name to use for this because we're not really sending the ink out in any very rapid form. It really is describing putting droplets of paper, droplets of pigment on the page itself. So it is very precise. It's very small drops so that we're able to get a very precise output from this. But inkjet very commonly is putting drops of those pigments, usually in different colors, on the page itself to create the final output. Now that means the last one on our list, laser, well, there's only one other option that's available that we have not chosen already, and that would be option D. An image is constructed in memory before printing. This is very unique to a laser printer. I guess not very unique. There's no such thing as very unique, is there? Someone check me on that. I think that's probably the case. It is certainly unique to laser printers. Other printers, you can start sending the output to the printer and it will start creating them almost immediately. But laser printers have to get the entire page, render the entire page in memory of the printer itself. So before the printer even starts moving, it has already created a representation of what it wants to put on the final printed page, something very common to laser printers. So if you're constructing in memory, all of this in memory before you start printing, you're probably using a laser printer. So those are the 5 options. A thermal printer uses specially treated paper to display the output. An impact printer pushes the head through an ink ribbon to create output, certainly a very common impact printer. A 3D printer, one way is to create output by heating and layering filament for the 3D printer. We've got an inkjet printer putting drops of pigment on the page, and then a laser printer has an image constructed in memory before printing. Those are at least the 5 printer types we wanted to do this time through. Of course, you should know everything that's listed in the exam objectives regarding printers. There's a lot there to go through. And if you've never really worked as printers, with printers before, then you may find some of this is very convoluted. This is one of those where you really have to get into those printers, kind of touch them and feel them and see how they work on the inside. So we give you plenty of pictures and diagrams to be able to understand how these printers work in our videos. Very useful to have that here. And hopefully that's given you some perspective of things you might want to use when working through these different types of printing technologies. Make sure you have a look at those. Let's shift gears now back to a multiple choice question. I think we're pretty accustomed to those. This next question on our list asks, a new desktop computer shipment has just arrived, but the system will not power on. Which of the following should be checked first? Should we check the M.2 connector, the smart report, the 24-pin connector, the jitter measurement, or the BIOS version? Got a few things to check there. A new desktop computer shipment has just arrived, but the system will not power on. Which of the following should be checked first? The M.2, smart report, 24-pin connector, jitter measurement, or BIOS version? If you think you know the answers, follow the link on your screen. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Folks in the chat room are even saying, wait, that's not what I would check first. That's not the thing I was thinking about. And this is a very common situation on the exam. Is the question didn't ask what should be checked first. It asked which of the following should be checked first, which seems like a subtle difference, but it is an important difference because the exam may not give you what you think would be the most common answer for this. And in fact, maybe in your role within this company, these are the 5 things that you're able to check. Somebody else has to check other things. That's very common to run into in large environments where you don't have control over the entire set of systems. You want to instead go to the link that's here, or at least the options that are here, and evaluate each of these options to determine which of the following should be checked first. So hopefully this will give you some things to kind of focus on and instead understanding what the different options are. Feel free to lock in your answers as we go through this. This also, by the way, is a good chance to go through your troubleshooting steps to determine which one of these might be good, which one of these might not be good. We'll have to figure it out. So let's see how you did with this one. The question again asks, a new desktop computer shipment has just arrived, but the system will not power on. Which of the following should be checked first? Would it be M.2, smart report, 24-pin connector, jitter measurement, or BIOS version? Let's see what you chose on this list. We'll get rid of that on the screen and close the poll. And we can see that 78% of you say the answer is a 24-pin connector, but 8% say it's the M.2, 6% say it is a smart report. We have 6% that say the BIOS version, and then less than 0.68% say the answer is a jitter measurement for these. So this is a good one to step through from a troubleshooting perspective when you run into a situation where there's no power. There's nothing going on this system, and we have to wonder what we would do to figure out where this is coming from. So we'll have to kind of step through all of these to figure it out. Is the power not coming from the wall? Is the power not happening at the power supply? Is that where our issue is? One of the best things that we can do then is to go in, maybe grab our multimeter and start measuring some of these things, or maybe a tester like we have here to see, is the problem in the wall? Is the issue something relating to the power supply that's in the computer itself? We have a number of different things to kind of step through. So this is where we might want to even see, Are we seeing any power in the system? Is at least maybe a fan running inside the system? Do we hear anything? There's a lot of different troubleshooting steps we can go through, and gathering information is an important step, an important part of this as we go through it. And one of the things that you can see here is that checking the power supply output is one of those options that we have on the screen because we're not getting any power on this. Well, as many of you are aware, when we get these desktop computers in with the motherboard, we know that the main power on the motherboard is a 24-pin power connector. This is what it looks like on the motherboard itself. The 24-pin connector is the one that is carrying power from the power supply of the computer into the motherboard and other components on this system. So this becomes a very important place to be able to get that first very important bit of power to the entire system. If this is not connected, if there's a problem between the power supply and the motherboard, it's going to be with this connector here. So this is where you should go, because when we ship this equipment from one place to another, occasionally people will not push this down very well. And during the process of shipment, you may have these connectors pop out. Either pop out of the motherboard itself or pop out of the power supply, especially if it's a modular power supply where these can easily be unplugged. So you might want to check all of those connections to make sure that we are getting power to the system. But is that really the best answer given the ones that we had? Let's step through all of these to be able to understand more of what they are. We've got obviously the 24-pin connector, which 78% of you chose. And indeed, I would say that is the right answer. That is the one that we were hoping for. And indeed, that's what we were, as we were going through this, exactly what we were focusing on. We have 8% that say the M.2 connector. M.2 connector is one that is on the motherboard, very commonly used to provide us with connectivity for storage devices, for example. It's very common to use that instead of something like SATA connections these days. M.2 is very commonly where we might plug in our SSD type connections on our motherboards. So M.2 is great for connectivity for storage, but it doesn't help us very much when we're running into a power problem. So that's probably not the connector that we would have to deal with. We also have 6% that say the answer is a SMART report. The SMART are the series of statistics that you can gather from a storage drive. It collects information about how the storage drive is performing, information about the environment that the storage drive is working in, what are the temperatures this drive is operating in, are we having any problems with the drive being able to access data, read or write data to that storage device. All of this is contained within those SMART statistics. This is great if your system is running, but if there's no power, there's no drive that's running. So obviously there's no statistics for the SMART report. That's not going to help us for a power issue. We have a BIOS version. The BIOS version is one that can at least give us an idea of the different features that might be available during the startup process. But here, the system's not even powering on. We don't even get a chance to view the BIOS because we don't have any power. So we could say BIOS version is not our issue. We can't even get to the BIOS to even know what version is there. So it's not going to be related to our BIOS. And lastly, a jitter measurement. As you've been through the troubleshooting for our Core 1, you've probably run into the networking section that talks about jitter. Jitter measures the distance or time between one packet and another, which is especially important to measure if you're doing something like voice over IP, where there should be a constant stream of data. If you're having gaps in that constant stream of data, it can certainly create problems for a real-time audio service. And voice over IP is a good example of where jitter measurements are important to consider. But that's on the network, and it's certainly assuming that the system is running, which is certainly not happening here. The only answer that really makes any sense is that 24-pin connector, because that's associated with the main power of the system. And like most questions on the A+ exam, this was a two-step process. You had to know that you were having a power problem, but then you had to figure out which one of these interfaces had anything to do with power. And they're not going to give you a direct answer with these questions. They're going to expect you to know what these different technologies are and which one of these might relate back to power. So something you should always consider. You never get these trivia type questions on the exam. You're not going to get a question on the exam that really focuses or points to a specific piece. They always want you to take a couple of steps to finally get to that final answer. And the one you should have gotten to here is the 24-pin connector. 78% of you got that one absolutely correct. Let's do another one. The next one on our list is this question that asks, a user would like to use their mobile phone to provide internet access to multiple devices. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be Bluetooth, Lightning, Hotspot, DB9, or NFC? Have a few choices there. The question again asks, a user would like to use their mobile phone to provide internet access to multiple devices. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be Bluetooth, Lightning, Hotspot, DB9, and NFC? That's what we're hoping to find. If you think you know the answer, go to the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We're going to go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. See how we do with this one. These are questions, by the way, that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. I'm not making up the content. I'm simply asking the questions. So follow those links on your screen to see if you know what the answer is. See if you can lock in what this one happens to be. Folks in the chat room are saying they are working towards other exams like the 1102. Are we doing live streams for other of the exams? We certainly are. In fact, tomorrow is our 1102 live stream. So you're welcome to come back tomorrow, and we'll do all 1102 questions from the 1102 exam objectives. Hopefully it's some of the exam objectives that you're already working towards, and we'll have to see how well you know them, because I have all new questions tomorrow as well. They've already been written. They're already in there waiting to go. We could do it. Let's do it now. No, we're not going to do it now. We're doing it tomorrow. But we will have plenty of questions for you then. So come on back tomorrow, same time, and we'll do it, all the 1102 questions there as well. This question, though, asks, a user would like to use their mobile phone to provide internet access to multiple devices. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be Bluetooth, Lightning, Hotspot, DB9, or NFC? And now it was a softball. I'd like to give you at least some that can at least go through the list of what these are. But the question really is, why is it not any of these others? And why couldn't it be, or could it? So we're going to step through each one of these. I think that would be good to know as we go through this. You've probably even done this with your phone. Many phones allow you to turn it on into a Wi-Fi hotspot mode so that other people can connect to your phone, and then your phone then connects to the internet over your cellular provider's network. This is a very common thing to do. Sometimes it requires an additional capability turned on. It may cost more money. They want you to pay for that capability that's on your phone. Ironically, even though they're not really doing anything, they charge you sometimes for this service. So that does happen occasionally to have that. But a hotspot is a very common thing. You can get standalone hotspots to do this, but usually your mobile phone, in fact, my mobile phone does this, where I can simply put it into a hotspot mode and then connect through my laptop, my tablet, or anything else that I might have around me through 802.11. So obviously here, most of us chose the hotspot as this option. But what about these other options that are there? Could we have used these to provide that level of access? And the answer is maybe. We might be able to. For example, there are some that certainly would not qualify in any way to be an answer that we could use to provide internet access. For example, a DB9 connector is a serial connector most commonly associated with configuration interfaces on switches, routers, firewalls, or other infrastructure devices. You rarely see a DB9 being used these days on any modern equipment, and you certainly would not use it for a mobile phone to provide internet access. We also have a case here where NFC was not one of the answers. that near field communication is a short range communication to send small amounts of data between a mobile phone and a secondary device. Very commonly, we use NFC when we are checking out at a store and we want to pay for something. We can use the NFC that's in our phones or our smartwatches to be able to connect and send payment information. This would not be very useful for wireless connectivity because everybody would have to be right next to your phone to be able to have internet access, and that's not very practical for a large number of people. So we can automatically dismiss the NFC as well, and indeed you did. Lightning was another one that most of you dismissed because Lightning is a way to connect to the phone through a wire. And here we want to be able to access and have multiple devices provide internet access. A wire would limit us to a single device, even though it could possibly work. So that is something that is very useful, is that you could just physically plug in to be able to have this connectivity. Normally, we refer to that as tethering because you are physically connected to the phone to be able to get that internet connectivity. There's also a wireless tethering, if you want to think of it that way, where instead of using a cable like a lightning connector to be able to have that available, you can connect wirelessly over Bluetooth. And then once you have the Bluetooth connection, you would have connectivity to the internet through your phone. But again, in most cases, with most implementations of that type of connectivity, it limits it to one device connecting via Bluetooth. Not a very common way to do it. Almost everybody has 802.11. So we would use the hotspot functionality to connect to our phone over 802.11 and then have our phone connect to the rest of the internet via something like LTE, 5G, or some other type of technology on the cellular network. Was it a gimme? It was a little bit of a gimme, but sometimes I like to give you one where we can kind of step through the technologies, not necessarily the one that is the right answer, but sometimes I like stepping through the ones that are the wrong answer as well. One of the things you'll notice if you start going through my course is that there are a lot of different topics. And of course, the reason for that is that CompTIA has a very broad set of topics they put into the 1101 and the 1102 exam objectives. There's a lot of information in these exams, and I highly recommend you go through all 137 videos of my course. It's a lot of videos, and it's over 19 hours of content. So that's a lot to be able to go through. So I tell people all the time, if you have time, please go through every video, but not everybody does. And sometimes you like to have everything available kind of afterwards to be able to focus on just the content you need to know. And so what I've done is take all of the text from my videos, all of the important graphics, all of the charts and tables, and I put them into one document. These are my course notes. This is both PDF and physical notes that you can get that summarize everything from my videos. This is the PDF version of my course notes. So you can find things that have the different graphics, the different diagrams, the port numbers, the interfaces, everything that's in my videos, it's in here. So this is a way that you can summarize and have everything at a glance. And because it's a PDF, we can have it in our mobile phones. We can put it in our tablets. We can have it on our desktop computers. We can have it on our laptops. We can have it everywhere. Anywhere you go, you can take this with you to study. And it's also a great way to support the things that we are doing here at Messer Studios. So if you want to help keep this crazy experiment going, this is another great way to do that. Hopefully it's a win-win where you can also get some very useful training materials to help you pass your certification exams. You can learn more about these course notes. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/1101 course notes or follow the links at the top of the ProfessorMesser.com website for the 1102 or the 1101 course notes. Both of them are available, and if you buy them both together, you get a little bit of a price break as well. It's all on my website. Have a look at those. See if that might be giving you an idea of things that you could look at for your studying for these exams. Let's do another question. I've got another one that we could step through. This is, again, another multiple choice question. And it asks, a network administrator has identified an Ethernet cable with swapped pins. Which of the following provided this information? Was it an inductive probe, a cable tester, a punch down tool, a tone generator, or a loopback plug? Got a few things to choose from there. A network administrator has identified an Ethernet cable with swapped pins. Which of the following provided this information? Is it an inductive probe, a cable tester, a punch-down tool, a tone generator, or a loopback plug? If you think you know the answer, go to the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We're going to see if we know what this one might be. We're a little slower on this one. Not quite the gimme the last one was. I do mix them up a little bit. I do think about this as I'm putting this together. Is this one too easy? Is this one too hard? Sometimes I want to be able to give you more of an easier question, but these are the topics that are in the exam objectives as well. So I want to be sure you have a good measurement of all of the things that are here and what you might want to use for this. And troubleshooting a network connection, you might have a number of tools available to work from. Hopefully you're familiar with these. All of these answers, by the way, are in the exam objectives. If you're looking at one of the answers and you're thinking, I'm not sure what that is, you might want to make a note so that you can go back and figure out from at least a little bit more what this might be. So it might give you a better idea in the exam objectives what to choose from. And that would be a good place to go. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, a network administrator has identified an Ethernet cable with swapped pins. Which of the following provided this information? Was it inductive probe, cable tester, punch-down tool, tone generator, or loopback plug? What'd you answer? Let's find out. We'll stop the poll, and you can see that 64% of you say the answer is cable tester. Now, is this one where we think we know the answer? Because we got kind of a similar answer with all of the others. We got a similar distribution with all the others. For example, a loopback plug, 15%. 6% say tone generator, 5% say punch-down tool, and 7% say inductive probe. We have these multiple answers that are so close to each other that maybe we were choosing one over the other. Cable tester is what came out as our top list for something telling us where swapped pins might be. And if you've ever done any type of cabling, any type of wiring, or you've been testing cables or wires on your network, then you've probably used a cable tester. These are relatively simple tests. These are effectively a test that shows us continuity, which means it checks to see if we can get signal from pin 1 on one side of the cable to pin 1 on the other side of the cable. Then it checks to see if we can get a signal from pin 2 on one side of the cable to pin 2 on the other side of the cable. So all we're checking to see is if we have a full wired connection from pin 1 to pin 1, pin 2 to pin 2, pin 3 to pin 3, and so on. And it will tell you on the screen of the cable tester how many of these match. You'll be able to see visually, are we able to get signal across this cable from one pin to the other? That's why there's usually two pieces involved here. There's a piece you'd put on one end and a piece you put on the other, and then it sends that signal across to be able to measure it and be able to know if it's able to get all the way through. So if we happen to swap some of those pins, if pin 1 is really connected to pin 2 and pin 2 is really connected to pin 1, it will not show continuity on our cable tester, and that will be a great way to identify missing pins, crossed wires, or open connections where there's simply no connectivity between those different pins. Where we have limitations, though, would be anything beyond this. Somebody says, well, we can see that it's wired correctly, but how good is the quality of the signal going over that connection? Is there a lot of crosstalk? Are we getting a lot of interference? Are we really able to send gigabit speeds over this link? A cable tester generally is not going to be able to tell you that. You would need some additional tools to be able to do that. Commonly, something like a higher end measurement tool, and we can talk about those in just a bit as well, that to be able to understand what quality of signal that we're able to get through this particular connection. This cable tester is a relatively simple thing. It's not going to give us anything that gives us that level of quality, but there are certainly ways to measure that, and it's an important step if you're installing new wiring into a facility that you perform some final quality checks of those cables to make sure that they're able to send data at the appropriate speeds on that network. Cable tester is exactly what we were looking for, and indeed 64% of you chose that option. There are other tools that you will use all the time, two that you will use in conjunction conjunction with each other are a tone generator and an inductive probe. Tone generators are used, you put one on one end of a wire, and then you use a probe to find out where the other end of the wire happens to be. And if you watch my video on these tools, you'll see me perform an inductive probe test where I just put a random set of wires out here. I put the tone generator on one of them, and then we in real time can see me testing each one of those wires to see where the other end of the wire happens to really be. So those two are useful to be able to find the right cable, but they're not going to tell you if any of the pins in the cable happen to be swapped. Same thing with a punch-down tool. Punch-down tools are used to physically fasten wires into a punch-down block. And although they're very useful for having that final connection, a permanent connection into the wiring block, it doesn't tell you if you happen to swap any of those. And you will swap these as you're working with those punch-down tools. Occasionally it does happen. But the punch-down tool is not going to tell you that you made a problem, that you accidentally swapped those pins. What's going to happen later on is you're going to plug in your cable tester to do a final check, and it's going to show you that you do not have connectivity between both of those different pins. So would not be a punch-down tool. The last one on this list that could potentially point you in a direction, but really doesn't tell you, is a loopback plug. Loopback plugs are used to send information out of a device and have that information looped right back into the device. Commonly used to test the interface, the physical interface that is on a device to make sure that it's able to send and receive data without any type of error or data corruption. Loopback plugs are perfect for doing that, but the loopback plug itself would not tell you that there were swapped pins. It might tell you that it's not able to receive data that's being sent out one side of that connector, but usually loopback plugs don't have swapped pins, and loopback plugs aren't testing cables. They're testing interfaces. Very rarely would you use a cable and put it into the middle of a loopback plug test. It defeats the purpose of doing the loopback plug test, have the cable there. So hopefully you're not using your cable in conjunction with the loopback plug, not be something commonly done for your testing. The answer here, the one that almost everyone should be using to find this out, is indeed the cable tester. 64% of you chose that option, and that is the one we wanted to have for the right answer in this particular case. So as we are stepping through these different questions, I'll also remind you that if you would like to earn a 1 hour of a webinar category CEU, that is a continuing education unit credit, I would be glad to provide this to you. This is used, by the way, if you are someone who is planning, you already have your A+ certification and you're planning to renew your certification. That's what you would use these CEUs for. If you don't currently have a CompTIA certification or some other type of certification that you would be renewing, these CEUs aren't going to help you very much. You can only accumulate them after you've earned the certification. The way that you would earn one in this case is you have to follow these instructions. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link, and in that Contact Us link, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put March 2024 Core 1, and then in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month and inductive probe. Kind of mixed it up there. Inductive probe is the super secret code words of the month. Put that into that message. And if you don't want to put anything else in there, you can hit the send button. It will come to me, and I'll turn these around in about a week. I'll also tell you that if you'd like to put anything else into that message, I do read through every single one of these. I get hundreds of these in every month, though, so I'm not able to get to individually respond to every single one of them, but I do like reading through them. So thank you for adding them to the mix. But if you don't want to put anything in there, that's fine too. Again, the way that you would earn that CEU is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, put March 2024 Core 1, and in the body of the message on the line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, inductive probe. And I'll be able to send that to be able to give you that 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. Now, you can't use our live streams to do your entire renewal. You can only accumulate a certain number of webinar category CEUs during that 3-year renewal period. But if you're collecting CEUs, this can certainly help you towards that final goal. Let's do some more questions. We've got more time. Next question on our list is this one that asks, which of the following monitor inputs could be used with a video card containing a DVI output? We have a number of different options here to choose from. We have HDMI, VGA, DisplayPort, Lightning, or Thunderbolt. Got some options there. Which of the following monitor inputs could be used with a video card containing a DVI output? I think we're assuming here that those are the only things we have. There's nothing in between. So would it be HDMI, VGA, DisplayPort, Lightning, and Thunderbolt? Those are your 5 different options. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. See if that happens to be one that you know of. Maybe you've even done this. Maybe you have a monitor or an adapter card, a video card on your system with a DVI output, and then you have a monitor. How would you plug those in? Maybe the monitor doesn't have DVI. So now you're in this interesting place where, how do I take this DVI signal and somehow get it into this monitor? Maybe I've said too much. You can, of course, lock in your answer by visiting the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. I have done this, in fact, I have equipment in my studio that is a DVI output. That's the only thing on that system. And the only way to get it into other systems is to use one of these answers. I almost said what it was. On one of those answers, see if you happen to know what it is. This is where you should go to answer the question. Let's see how we did with this one. The question again asks, which of the following monitor inputs could be used with a video card containing a DVI output? Would it be HDMI, VGA, DisplayPort, Lightning, or Thunderbolt? And we hit one where we're not sure. So we went from everyone knowing the answer to a third of us knowing the answer. So this is where we have a number of different options here. We have 38% that say VGA, 33% that say HDMI, and 26% that say DisplayPort. So those are our top 3. Now you'll notice that Thunderbolt down here with 1%. That seems sad. And Lightning got none, 0%. So this is one where we have to think about these different interface types and what we're doing and how we would have these different interface types integrate with our systems. So there's actually 2 possible answers here. There's really only one practical answer for this question, but there are 2 that are possible answers for this question. The ones that, if the question was more specific and said this was a DVI-D output, and the reason I didn't say a DVI-D output is because effectively they're all DVI-D outputs that you're going to run into. It would be very, very, very unusual for you to run into a DVI analog output. Almost all DVI outputs that you will run into, almost 100% of them will be digital outputs. So I'll give you partial credit on this one. I'll give you double credit on this one, depending on which one we chose. Because if you have a DVI on one side, you can plug in HDMI on the other side just by using a cable. There's nothing you need in between. You don't need any type of conversion process. You don't need any type of conversion process that can take you from DVI and somehow change the video signal, re-engineer the video signal, re-render the video signal. You don't have to do any of that because the DVI signal and the HDMI video signal are compatible with each other. They are electrically the same in this particular instance. So you can have a cable like this one or an interface like this one. This is one where we've got just an interface. You don't even need a cable. On one end of the interface, on one side of it is a DVI connection, on the other side is HDMI. So this makes it very, very easy to be able to plug in. So if your monitor is an HDMI monitor, and they effectively all are these days, you can plug in DVI on one side with a cable like this one, plug in the HDMI, you're done. There's nothing else you have to do to be able to make that happen. Very, very simple, because they are all the same digital signal. Now, some people in the chat room have mentioned already, and they are absolutely correct, is there are flavors of DVI that will output analog video, an analog signal. And the problem you run into, in fact, that would have been even better on this question if I would have put that it was digital or analog in some way. The problem, though, is that you run into so few instances of DVI analog that VGA would not have been one of those options. VGA, by the way, is an analog video output signal. And VGA is one that you very commonly see on legacy equipment. It's been around for so long, but it outputs an analog signal. If our video card is putting a DVI digital output, VGA is not going to work properly with that. You're not going to be able to use both of those together. But since there is a possibility, there is a chance that maybe you came across a unicorn, and this unicorn was an adapter card with DVI analog output, you could potentially have it brought over into VGA. But it would have to be quite the unicorn. That would be a remarkable one to run into. Just doesn't happen very often. The most common configurations are DVI digital output going to HDMI, and that really is the one that I would choose as the correct answer here. With VGA, we could choose that one as an alternate to, I guess, if you wanted to give me that corner case of one of those things happening. The one that it absolutely would not be, though, is DisplayPort. DisplayPort is not electrically compatible with that DVI-D, the DVI-D digital view. We could do a conversion between those two, but that would require something in the middle. And in this question, there was no mention of anything being in the middle. Thunderbolt is a very common video output. In fact, the video display that you're seeing right now is coming to you through a Thunderbolt connection. So you've got a few things that you could at least think about from that perspective, but Thunderbolt is not one that is compatible at all with DVI, whether it's digital or analog. So that would not be the connection that we would use. And Lightning, as many of you have selected here, not really a video output format. So definitely not the choice we would use. 0% of you thought the same thing. In this particular case, the one that you would use, the first one you would go with, if you were going to choose the best option in this particular case, is indeed the HDMI connection. 33.33%, exactly a third of you chose HDMI, and that is the answer we were looking for in this case, so that you would be able to work with and know exactly what type of connection you would use. If you had DVI on one side and HDMI on the other, you just need a cable. Just plug it in, it will work every time. It's so good to have that there. So hopefully it's given you some options, some ideas and things to think about. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. Let's squeeze in another one of these questions so we can say that we were able to make it happen today. This next question asks, a company is building a cloud. I don't know if I want to do, yeah, let's do this one. I think that's a good, we did a cloud one before, but this is another cloud question. We need as much cloud as we can on this one and be able to work with these. A company is building a cloud application that will be used simultaneously across multiple data centers. Which of the following should be part of this application design? Should we have rapid elasticity, file synchronization, virtual desktop infrastructure, RAID arrays, or non-metered billing? Those are all 5 things we should think about when implementing a cloud-based application. A company is building a cloud application that will be used simultaneously across multiple data centers. Which of the following should be part of this application design? Should it be rapid elasticity, file synchronization, virtual desktop infrastructure, RAID arrays, or non-metered billing? If you think you know the answer, follow the links on your screen. Go to professormester.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Instead, we want to go to the links that we have here to be able to answer and see if we know what this answer is. A lot of you, I think, you know what this one is. You're locking it in pretty quick, which makes me think we either know what it is or we think we know what it is, which are sometimes 2 different things. So we're going to find out if they're 2 different things as we go through the answer on this one. A lot of these being locked in right now. And this is one where cloud-based questions, although it's a small section, relatively small section compared to the rest of the exam objectives, it is one where there's a lot of questions that come from it. So you really do have to know your cloud technologies, especially with the A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and others. CompTIA likes to make sure that you're up to date on all of these latest cloud technologies. And in fact, everything listed here are from the exam objectives. So they're things we have to know for our exam. The question here is one talking about an application, but it is also one that a lot of these answers we could use, but it doesn't fit the scenario that we put into the question itself. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, a company is building a cloud application that will be used simultaneously across multiple data centers. Which of the following should be part of this application design? Should it be rapid elasticity, file synchronization, virtual desktop infrastructure, RAID arrays, or non-metered billing? Technically, all of them could be part of the application design, but the question is, which one must be part of the application design to be able to support multiple data centers? And if we look at the answers that you have locked in, you can see that 52% of you say that you would use file synchronization. 20% of you say rapid elasticity. Another 20% say virtual desktop infrastructure. 6% say RAID arrays, and less than 1% say non-metered billing. So this is where we get into interesting characteristics of cloud technologies. Rapid elasticity is one where if you have a very dynamic environment where there might be a lot of people accessing an application at certain times of the day or certain times of the month, and then other times of the day or later in the week, you have fewer people, you might want to scale down all of the application instances you have, so you're only paying for what you use. The idea of scaling up and scaling down that way is referred to as rapid elasticity. It's a very elastic type of scenario where you can roll out additional capacity and then pull that capacity back so you're not having to pay for it. A great advantage of running cloud technologies. But having a cloud application used simultaneously across multiple data centers doesn't imply that you're needing to greatly expand or decrease the size of this particular app. It only means that the app needs to run at multiple data centers. So rapid elasticity would not be the answer that we were looking for. High availability and things like RAID arrays and keeping things up and running are certainly important, and having that redundancy is one we should think about. But this question was asking about running an application across multiple data centers. We weren't really talking about the application being available 24/7. So that's not the answer that we were looking for. RAID arrays would not work. But if we have multiple data centers, how do we keep all of this data synchronized between all of the users? This can sometimes be done with a centralized database. So although the users are accessing the application in one data center, maybe everybody comes back to one central data center for their data. But in this case, we didn't have that scenario. There was no mention of that in the question or the answers. Instead, what a lot of organizations will do, in fact, we do it here at Messer Studios, is that when data changes on one server, it is immediately pushed out to all of the other servers. So if you go to one of my web servers, for example, right now, if I was to update my primary web server, all of my secondary servers are updated automatically as soon as I make that change. I synchronize the data across all of those servers. This also means that if I happen to lose a server, all of the data is backed up on the other servers. So I never have to worry about losing the core data for my database because everything is distributed and copied across with file synchronization. That's what we were hoping to find here. And that is the answer that we were looking for, is file synchronization. 52% of you chose that one. A virtual desktop infrastructure is one where your desktop, instead of being on your desk, having the CPU and the memory and the application running on your desk in front of you, instead you run all of that in the cloud. In this particular question, we're building an application. We're not talking about desktop management. We're not talking about putting our desktop somewhere else. We're talking about a cloud application. So a VDI, or a virtual desktop infrastructure, would not be very useful to solving this particular problem. And we already mentioned how RAID arrays was not part of the scenario because we weren't talking about redundancy, and only less than 1% of you chose non-metered billing. The way that we bill for this application is irrelevant to how we happen to roll the application out. In this case, we were looking for a way to keep all of that data in sync across all of those different data centers. And the answer here, the only one that really makes sense, is file synchronization. That's the answer we were looking for, and the one that would be the right answer for this particular question. So now you can read through the rest of that. I can get my head out of the way there. So you can read through the rest of that question and know exactly what people were asking about on that one. And this is one when you're designing applications, this can become pretty important to know what application you would want to use and what features of that application should be rolled out. In this case, it would be file synchronization. So as you've probably already seen in these videos that we do, in the live streams, in the Q&A that we do, there are a lot of different topics. And our live stream that we do today for our study group is really just to study. It's not meant to be a representation of exactly the type of question you might get on your exam, but it is designed to prepare you for those questions. If you really wanted to go through a sample exam where you're getting questions that are written with the same style and the same tone as the CompTIA exams, or you would like questions that go through every possible scenario of a problem and break it down into its smaller pieces, you might want to look at my practice exams. These are books that I have written that are specifically designed to prepare you for an actual exam. In fact, my Core 1 practice exams book is one that is available both in digital and physical forms. They're big books. These are 389 pages for the Core 1, all full of questions, answers, and so much more. I have both performance-based questions and multiple choice-based questions in these books. A lot to go through. And I have for you, even though we're at the top of the hour, let's do a question from the book. So we're not done with questions. Again, no questions or no answers in the chat room. We're going to follow our same link to everything, the same process that we use for everything else. This is a question from my book. So in front of me is my practice exams book. This is question A63. For those of you that already have the book, you probably remember this. The question asks, a remote user is visiting their corporate office. They have connected their laptop to the wireless network, but the corporate internet access is performing much slower than their remote site network. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Is it the default gateway is incorrect? The laptop has been assigned an API-PA address, the user does not have permission to use the wireless network, or there's interference with the wireless signal. Now, if you just wanted to know whether it's A, B, C, or D, this is, of course, a PDF. So if I wanted to do some annotation, I could always annotate things on the screen. I could choose a particular answer if I wanted to. I could draw on the screen or write on the screen if I have a stylus. There's different things you can do. I've also put links into the book itself. So if you're using the PDF version, if you highlight over a quick answer, it will take you to a page that will tell you whether it's A, B, C, or D. But I also have another page. This is on page 100. And right now I'm on page 22. So I could, of course, scroll through the book to page 100, or I can simply click where it says the details, and it moves me up to page 100 instantly. There's the question again, and it tells me that the answer is D. There's interference with the wireless signal. So of the four options we had, that is the one that would be the most likely reason for this issue. And as always, and you've probably seen this in other types of exams that you've taken, it gives you an explanation of why that's the correct answer. The problem that I have, though, is that I'll get a question wrong, and a lot of the tools that I'm using don't tell me why the question was wrong. It only tells me why the question was right. But we had three other answers here that we could get feedback on why those questions were wrong to help us know why we would get the question right next time, especially if maybe one of the questions on your exam came from one of these other topics. It would be useful to know about these other topics. So I give you, in my book, every incorrect answer also is explained on why it is the incorrect choice for this particular question. And you can see why the default gateway is incorrect, why having a laptop assigned an API-PA address is not the correct answer, or a user having permission issues, why it would not be the right answer. And you can read up all of those. I highly recommend, by the way, that you have a look at all of the incorrect answers, even if you get the question right, because your test might have a topic that comes from the incorrect answers as well. I try to put in my book, all of the answers are possible answers because they all come from the exam objectives. I try not to make things up out of whole cloth. This is one that has there. And of course, if you have read through the question and you don't even know what I'm asking, I do have links to the original videos where the topics are covered. So if you're trying to catch up to some of those topics, this can take you right to the page that has the video on it. So you can view the 220.1101 Objective 5.7 Troubleshooting Networks and a link to the video that describes it. And once you're done, since this is a PDF, I can simply click the back button in my PDF and I'm back to where I started, and I can go to the next question that's on my list. These are my practice exams book. I have them for the A+ Core 1, the A+ Core 2. We've got others there. They're available both in a digital form that you just saw and a physical form that I'm holding in my hand. And if you purchase the physical version of the book, I have to print this out and send it to you. They're printed on demand. So the book you're getting has been created only for you, and I'm shipping these out. But you also get the digital one for free and you can download it immediately. So while you're waiting on this to be delivered, you've already got the digital version that you can work with. So you don't lose a moment, even if you want to get something physical in your hands. This is my practice exams book. You can find out more on my website. Go to professormesser.com/core1pe for more information about those. As I mentioned, everything that we did today comes from the exam objectives that CompTIA gives you for free. What? It's free? It is. It's absolutely free. And if you don't have a copy of this, you are at a significant disadvantage. There's so much good information in these course notes and the objectives. In fact, I have the objectives on my screen right here. It is just so full of information of what you should know. All of the bullets of everything you need to know for the exam are in here, to the point that I tell people, if you know everything that's in these objectives, you've gone through this entire list and you've used it as a checklist. You can see I was even making notes in mine, that if you know everything that's in these objectives, then you're ready to take your exam and you're going to pass it no problem. That's how close CompTIA stays to these objectives. Make sure you get your hands on these. There's a link that will take you over to the CompTIA website. You can go to professormesser.com/objectives, or simply go to your favorite search engine, type in CompTIA Exam Objectives, and you can download it from the CompTIA site that way as well. A lot of things you can do. We have one of these study groups that we do every month for A+ Core 1, A+ Core 2, Network Plus, and Security Plus. And if you want to know when the next live event is going to be, simply follow the links on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/calendar, or follow the calendar link at the top of my website. That calendar link will tell you that our next live study group is tomorrow. Just a quirk of the schedule is one where we're doing our Core 2 study group tomorrow, March the 13th. If you want to tune back for our next Core 1 study group, we've got ones currently scheduled for April the 9th, and we've got our Core 2 study group for April the 11th. And of course, we have Network Plus and Security Plus in March. We've also got some already scheduled for April. You can see those on the calendar. We've always got the latest calendar in there. If I make changes to these, I always update them online immediately. So anytime you want to know what is the latest status for live streams, that's where you go. Go to professormesser.com/calendar, and you'll be able to find out when our next live event is. We'd love to have you join us. Well, don't worry, we still got more to do today. Even though we're finished with the Q&A part that I give, I'm going to do the Q&A part that you give to me. So if you'd like to submit a question for our after show, you can certainly do this right now by going to professormesser.com/QA and clicking that link at the top of the page. This is one where you can submit questions that you would like me to answer in the after show, which is coming up next. Don't forget about our discounted vouchers. If you happen to be in the US or Canada or US territory, you can find that at professormesser.com/vouchers. We've also got our practice exams, our course notes, and so much more on our website. You can find out more about that at professormesser.com/1101success. And if you want to follow us on Discord, on Instagram, on YouTube, or anywhere else, simply go to professormesser.com/ the name of the place you'd like to find me, /Discord, /Twitter, /YouTube, /Instagram, /LinkedIn, /other places. It's all out there. Go to professormesser.com/ the name of the place, and you'll be able to find me there without a problem at all. Well, hopefully that's given you some things to think about for your studies. Stick around for our after show. Thank you for joining us in our live stream, and we will see you next time on the A+ study group. All right, it's time for the after show. You take a sip. That is some high quality H2O. We are now ready for the after show part of our live stream. I'm going to kind of get things set up on this side so that I can close these polls out and show the Q&A. So that's what we are doing next is I need to, let's see if I can close these things out that I have on the screen. Pardon me. So this is one where it's an interesting thing that we're doing is that we tend to ask a lot of questions in the first part of the live stream where I'm talking to you and asking you questions. I thought it would be nice to have questions where I can answer your questions. And that's what we're doing now. If you would like to join us on the second part of the live stream, you can simply go to professormester.com/QA and at the top of the screen, you can see that it even tells you you can submit questions for the second hour of the study group at any time. I'm going to moderate these questions on my side, so you won't see it pop up on the screen immediately, but I will get there eventually to be able to make that happen. So make sure that you have a look at those options and be able to put those in. A number of you have already put some questions in here, just waiting for me. So what I want to do is step through these and be able to see what questions you might have and be able to understand more about what is here. We have a number of different questions that are coming in. So I'm going to address a number of them. Let's say first, in this list of things, let's go to this question. Since we were sort of talking about CEUs earlier, the question here from Michael asks, hi, Professor, can I use your live video, this one we're on right now, to renew the A+ using continuing education points or units or credits or whatever they call them on the CompTIA website? CEUs, I think, is what they use as units. And the answer is you could, but only to a point. And I mentioned this, and I think I said it a bit in the live stream, but let's look at the CompTIA website and I'll give you an idea of how they do renewals using continuing education. At the top of the CompTIA website is a link for continuing education, and they give you a breakdown on the different ways to renew, what continuing education units are. You don't have to collect CEUs, by the way. If you don't want to collect one CEU to renew your cert, you don't have to. There's other ways to renew your certification that you don't have to go through this process of collecting all of these units and submitting them to CompTIA. But if you're one who would like to do that, maybe a lot of the things you do in your normal day-to-day allow you to collect these CEUs. Maybe it's a very passive and easy way for you to renew your certification. You can see that you need 20 CEUs to renew an A+. So already we know there are a certain number we have to step through to be able to do that. You can earn CompTIA or non-CompTIA IT certifications. You can earn CompTIA certifications. You can participate in IT industry activities. You can publish an article, a white paper, a blog post, or a book, or you can gain related work experience. And then you can submit and see if your CEUs are valid on these pages. So there's lots of things that you can do to make that happen. Now, some of the things that we have here are being able to understand what we can do. We can teach our mentor. We can participate in a workshop. We can, there's just a huge list of things. But here's what you need to know is that each of these, there's a cap. So there's only, in almost all of these, there's a cap. Some of these there isn't. But if you, for example, we're going through this part where we're looking at a webinar. So you're attending a live webinar. There's the option on the page. That will give you 1 CEU for each hour you attend, and you must attend during your 3-year renewal. But what they don't tell you on this page, and you'll have to look at the other part of the continuing education breakdown, here it is attending a live webinar can give you 4 CEUs if you're renewing your A+. 4. Now wait, we needed 20 to renew our A+. If you attend 4 of my live webinars, you can earn 4 of those hours, but then that's it. In a 3-year renewal period, you can't earn more than 4 of them. I wish you could watch 20 of my videos and be able to earn everything you need to renew, but you cannot. Oh, darn it. CompTIA won't let you. You have to do these other things. Now, notice they've got other things. Completing a training course gives you 20. That's all you need to renew. Completing a college course gives you 20. That's all you need to renew. But doing things like attending a conference, you can't just go to a bunch of conferences and renew. Oh, they're on to me. You can't just attend a live webinar and renew. Again, they're on to me. So you've got other things that you can do, but just keep in mind you can't always just go look at CEUs to be able to do that. So a lot of people do the CertMaster CE. And if you look at the YouTube video description of this video, I do have a video on how to renew your certification in just a few hours. And that really focuses on the CertMaster CE to be able to renew that. But I also want to let you know that there are a number of different ways other than CEUs and other than those different training courses to be able to renew. And I try to go through each one of them and give you advantages and disadvantages. So you can look at the video for more details on that. Hopefully that can give you some ideas of things that you might use to be able to plan your renewal process. Sometimes it's not about collecting CEUs. Sometimes it's about taking another course, taking another certification, or maybe stepping through some other training to be able to do that. Let's do some more questions that you have in this list. I've got a number of these that we're going to move around, and I'm just going to step through them, and we're going to work through the other details of this. This is more of a question about the exam process itself, but it's a good one because you do run into this scenario when you're in the exam. Craig asks, are you able to go backwards during the exam to correct answers or to look over your answers if you have time at the end of the test? Now, this is a good question because not all IT industry certification exams work the same way. So let's first talk about CompTIA. The CompTIA exams are exams where they're very linear and the entire exam is created and put into the system before you start it. So when you hit the go button, the entire exam is laid out for you. So if there are 90 questions on the exam, when you start the exam, all 90 of those questions will be there. And you can jump to any question on the exam at any time. If you want to start at question 90 and work your way backwards, you can do that on the CompTIA exams. If you are on question 40 and you realize that question 40 actually answers a question that was posed earlier on the exam, you can back up and go change it and go back to question 40. In fact, you can jump directly to it if you would like to. So there are ways to jump around the CompTIA exam because all of the questions are already in place when you start the exam. That is not the way that every exam works. For example, Cisco exams are not set up this way. On a Cisco exam, you get the first question. You answer the question, you go to the questions number 2. Question number 2, maybe it has information on the second question that reminds you of something that you should have changed in question 1. But on a Cisco exam, it's too late. You can't back up. In fact, you can't go forward. You can't go anywhere. You have to answer the question that's in front of you because the next question on your exam will be based on your answer to this question. So it is very adaptive in how we refer to those types of exams as adaptive exams because they change depending on what your answers are. Very different than the linear exam that's created and available from CompTIA. So if you're taking a CompTIA exam, you don't have to worry about it. You can jump around to any question at any time. If you're taking a Cisco exam or exams from other organizations, you may not have that flexibility. But that's part of the strategy. When you're working with these exams, you might get something on the exam later on that solves a problem you had with a question earlier. You can use the exam to give yourself free points. How about that? It's almost like the exam is helping you out in those scenarios. That doesn't always happen, but it does sometimes. And it's great when that happens because there's the answer to the thing I needed in a question that happened earlier. So if that happens, that's great. We can, of course, find a way to find out where that is on the exam. And then, of course, we are going to correct our answers if we're running into that. And of course, if you want to look over your answers at the end of the test, maybe you finish the exam and you've got 15 minutes left over. You can, of course, go back to the very first question of your exam and you can step through the questions one by one. Or as you're going through the exam, you can check a box to flag the question and you can just go to the flagged questions. That's one of the strategies I use is if I know the answer on an exam, I know that was the answer, I'm 100% sure that the answer that I've selected is the correct one, I will not flag that question. But if I am 99% sure, I'm not 100% sure that the answer I chose on that question is the right one, I'll flag it. And I'll just go through the questions as quickly as I can. And when I'm done, I will go back through all my flagged questions. Even if I was 99, I might go, okay, we're going to say, yes, I'm 100% on that one. We'll take the flag off. We'll go to the next flag question. Then we'll go to the next one. And we'll go to the next one. So I'll go through all the flags to make sure that I've covered everything that I wasn't 100% sure on. But you can now adjust that yourself. Maybe you only want to flag questions you're 50% sure about. You get to decide the answer on that. And it's really more about time management than anything. I will end up on my exam sometimes having more than half of the exam flagged. So that tells you how much I studied on that exam, doesn't it? When that happens, I need to make sure I have enough time at the end of the exam that I can go back through those flagged questions. So this might be a timing issue. This might be when we're racing the clock. Maybe we don't want to flag so many. Maybe only flag the ones we're really, really confused about, and we go back to those. It's really more about how much time you have on the exam. And of course, whether you flag it or not, you have plenty of time to go back through those questions and figure it out. So don't worry, you will definitely have time for that. We will think about you as you're going through and flagging and stepping through those questions on your exam. It can be a very good strategy, though. It can earn you a couple of extra points. So absolutely. From a scheduling perspective, we mentioned this earlier, but Gabby's asking, do we have these live meetings weekly at the same time? Not weekly, but often, sometimes multiple times a week, sometimes on different days of the week. You can always go to the calendar to find out when that's going to be. That's at professormesser.com/calendar. That's really the best way to know when our next live event is going to be. And of course, they're on my YouTube channel. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel and you click the bell and get notification for everything that we do, you'll already know about it. You can also subscribe to email notifications on my website as well. Those are something that can help you know when the next live event is going to be, or at least give you a notice whether you have time at that point to join us or not. You'll at least know that the live stream is starting. It's another good way to do that. Other questions. This is a good one. I like that in this question that Joey had to say, no, really, it's a real question. Joey says, can we get the physical exam guidebook autograph? So I have these exam books, whether it's my practice exams or my course notes books. You know, these books are ones that are physical books. They're designed to be shipped out to you so that you can carry them around with you. There, of course, are PDF versions of these as well. What a nice thing to ask, though, Joey, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, I don't print the books here. So all of the books are printed somewhere else at an enormous facility where all they do is print books. And they're, in fact, printed in different places around the world, depending on where you are. It's just a lot easier for someone who has the equipment and the technology and, quite honestly, the know-how to do much better than I would in printing out books. So everything is printed on demand specifically for you, and it's shipped directly from our printer to your door. So unfortunately, there's no way for me to get in here to sign it, because by the time it's already been printed, it's already been sent out, and I don't have a way to do that. So sorry that I don't have that. You have to just catch me around somewhere, I guess. That's a bad idea too. Don't do that. But if we're at an event, maybe one of these industry events that occasionally comes through town, maybe that would be a good place. You can bring your book. I can sign it. That would be a good way to do it. I don't keep a lot of books here. In fact, I have to always look around to see, where's my books? I have them here. How am I supposed to show anybody what my books look like if I don't have the books anywhere? I have to look around to be able to find them in my studio sometimes. So I don't keep them around. They just are shipped out directly to you, which is the most effective way and quickest way to get it to you. And I think that's a good thing to consider, at least. Let's go through more questions that you have on here. This is a question about the A+. I think it's a pretty good question from John, who says, hey, wait a second, John says. He didn't say that, but I'm adding it as just sort of a dramatic flair. I thought the CompTIA A+ was valid for life. Is that wrong? Well, you're actually not wrong, but you are sort of wrong. So you're both correct and incorrect in this case, as we all are for the CompTIA A+ certification. The A+ certification used to be what CompTIA calls GFL, good for life. You earn your A+ certification, and it was good forever. and you didn't have to renew it. You didn't have to go through this CEU process. You didn't have to take a higher level exam. Once you were A+ certified, you were A+ certified. But in 2011, CompTIA said, no more of that. We are not going to allow Good for Life anymore. And it really wasn't CompTIA's decision necessarily to do that. But what happened in the industry is the international standards organizations decided that one of the things we should do is to always make sure that our technical people are always up to date with the latest technologies, which makes sense to me. And they created an international standard for certifications that requires ongoing updates for anybody who has a technology certification. So if you want your certifications to be compliant with these international standards, then you must make sure that they are updated with the technologies. Different companies do this in different ways. For example, with Microsoft, their technologies or their exams tend to be based on a specific product. And as new products come out, you will need to get the newer product certification if you want to be certified on that version of the product. With CompTIA, there are no versions of products. So what CompTIA does is your certification is good for 3 years, and you need to renew to maintain it for another 3 years. So during that first 3-year period, you will want to renew your cert. So it used to be valid for life, and you would be correct. But now the certification is no longer good for life. It's good for 3 years. And in fact, on your certification, you'll notice that it says it's a CompTIA A+, and you'll notice it has next to it CE. It's an A+ CE, continuing education is what that stands for, to designate it as the newer version of the A+ that has a 3-year life rather than the good for life version that was before. I think at this point, we can just sort of flip it. Like if you've got an A+ now, it's one that is not good for life. And quite honestly, what good would an A+ certification be if it's one from 2011? You've now got these older technologies. You don't have any of the newer Windows versions, none of the newer technologies and things that we have in our computers today. It just makes sense to keep you up to date with the latest. But I will tell you, you probably should not be taking the exam over and over again. In fact, that you could do that to renew. You could wait 3 years, and at the end of the 3 years, take both A+ exams again to earn the certification again for 3 years. I think what most people do, though, is they just renew. There's many ways to renew. Many of those ways don't require taking another exam. So you could possibly maintain the certification through the years and never have to worry about losing the cert, but also never having to take the exams again. So that's up to you. Make sure you look at the different options available to be able to do that. Let's keep going through questions. This is a question about the exam itself from Anonymous, who says, are you able to bring a blank piece of paper and a pencil to doodle on during the online exam? Sort of. The answer is sort of. The answer is yes and no. You are not able to bring anything into the exam room itself. And let's first maybe be better if I step back a second, because there's different ways to take the exam, isn't there? There's not just going to an exam center. You might take the exam online. That's one way that a lot of people are taking their exams. Not really necessarily my favorite way to take an exam, but it does provide you with a lot of functionality, especially if you're someone who is a long way away from any of the testing centers. Maybe it's an hour drive to go to a testing center or longer. It would be great if I could just take my exam at home. Another great way to do it. Now, if you're taking your exam at home, you don't have the ability to have a piece of paper in front of you. In fact, the rules are you can't bring paper into the room. You can't have a pencil on the table. You can't do any of this. Your desk has to be clean when you're at home taking the exam. But online, there is a way that you can make notes, and they have a whiteboard that is available in your OnView exam. You can get to this page yourself if you would like to. Just go to your favorite search engine, type in whiteboard OnView, that is ONVUE, that's the OnView that's right here, and CompTIA. Those are the 3 things I searched for. This was the first one there. And it effectively, they have at the bottom of the screen the whiteboard that you have in your exam. They even tell you on the exam, there's a little icon at the top. So it has the icon, has a little picture of there's the lady. I guess that's the person who is taking the exam. You can see herself. There's a chat button, and then there's a whiteboard button on the exam itself. The whiteboard brings this up. So this is basically just a notepad, and you can type in this notepad. Type in here. See, you got notepad. You can put a lot of information in here. You can put in information about memory. We can add information about RAID. We can put anything we want in this link, and it will be in your exam through the duration of the exam. Now, there's also things that you could draw on. There's other options at the bottom of the screen. You could bring up something to draw with, and you can draw in this lower section. I'm not sure how useful this really is. It's on the exam. They've just always had it there, but I don't know. You know, it's hard to write on the exam with letters and numbers, and so maybe that's not a practical thing to do. Maybe it's better just to use the keyboard and be able to work with it. So I think that's one that is available in all of the on-view exams. And in fact, if you're taking your exam at home, that's the only thing you can use to make notes on. You can't bring in a piece of paper. You can't bring in a pencil. As I said earlier, you have to use their whiteboard. If you are at a testing center, so if you go to a facility that has a testing room that you take you into, they commonly bring you in with a piece of laminated paper, just one page, and they give you a pen, usually an erasable marker pen. So at the end, you'll bring that out and they'll just erase everything. One of the tips I would often tell people is the pens they always give you at the testing centers are awful. I'm not sure, they must hit it the end of the pen on the desk 5 or 6 or 7 times and then hand it to you, because it's just horrible to write with. And it's not even worthwhile from my perspective. I will bring in my own fine-tipped marker, and I'll of course stop at the front desk and say, can I use this marker? And they'll look it over and go, okay, it's just a marker. There's nothing secret inside. It's just a pen. And 100% of the time when I've done this, they've gone, sure, yeah, you can bring that in. That's fine. Our markers are awful. It's smart that you brought your own marker, they will tell me. And then I have a very fine-tipped pen that I can write with that actually accomplishes something during the exam. If you want to do that, check with your local testing center. I have gotten feedback that not all testing centers are as nice as the one near me. So check with the testing center before you show up and see if they'll let you bring your own pen. That will be very nice. It has to be a dry erase marker, so you might have to spend a couple bucks to be able to get the proper kind of pen on your exam. But that is another way to do that. So the paper and working with those during the exam, yep, you can then doodle as much as you would like, because it's their paper and it's their pen. And I guess technically you could doodle on your whiteboard too, as much as you would like. That's really a mess. And it's kind of hard to even delete things after the fact. Can I delete the whole thing? Yeah. So we can start fresh. There we go. And we can write on there. So if you're someone who wants to do that during your exam, I guess you could do that too. I don't know if that really helps or not, but that should give you at least options that would work with however you would like to do your studies for your exam. Let's do some more questions. Next one on this list. Since we're talking about what you can do during the exam, we'll also cover this one. And I've got some others in here I want to go to that are in a different topic. But this one, also from Anonymous, who's very busy today, says, hey, can I drink water during the exam? And from the perspective from the online exam, if you're at home taking your exam, you can have water. That's in the rule book. I think they even mention in the rules that it has to be in a clear glass. I think that's one of the things they did. Maybe a bottle would be a good idea. Don't put an open glass of water on your desk with your computer. Have something with a top on it. That would be a good idea. Can you imagine that in the middle of the exam? And in the testing center, the testing centers that I have been to will allow me to bring in a water bottle, clear water bottle. But you should, of course, ask them if that's something that they would allow for the testing center. In some testing centers, no drinking, no eating. So it may not be available in their environment because it's their computers. I guess I can understand that. That may be something to think about too, if you're planning that. Often they just want to be able to see inside the bottle. So that's the reason I say a clear bottle and being able to do that. You should always cover those. There's topics on those. I think if I was to look at the testing rules at a testing center. I want to say it's no eating, no drinking. I guess we could also extend that to also mean no chewing of things, so no gum on there. That would be, a lot of people in the chat room go, I love to chew gum during my exam. Yes, but we don't like you to chew gum during your exam. That's the difference. So there are things where that could help you maybe at home, but maybe not in a testing center. So there could be differences on how that could affect others depending on where you might be taking the exam. So another thing to think about. Let's do another question on this list. This is a pretty good one. We're going to take this one just because of Canada, because you know how we are about Canada around here. This question asks, hello, Professor Messer. Hope you're doing well. I'm finding it difficult to land an entry-level job, IT/desktop support. I graduated last April. I recently answered the CompTIA A+ Core 1, hoping to get done with the Core 2 this month. Well, this is good. If you're working on getting your certifications, that's going to help you in the job hunt. This question continues. Can you tell me which cert you'd recommend next? I see a lot of jobs asking for cloud experience or certs as requirements. P.S. I'm from Canada. And as many of you know, I'm married to a Canadian. So full disclosure, I guess we want to talk about that. It's a big question. But here's the situation that we run into, and you've almost done this yourself, Jocelyn. This one asks, you're going through this process, you've graduated, you're running into these challenges with getting people to notice you, recognize you, and get into the details of these jobs and getting that entry-level position. And I think working towards an A+ certification is a very good idea, especially if employers in your area are asking for an A+ certification. And you've almost answered the question for me in the second part, because you said, I see a lot of jobs asking for cloud experience or certs as requirements. This was really my next question to you, which was, I don't know what your next certification or your next piece of helpful additions to your resume should be, but the employers do know. The employers are already asking for the skills they would like to have. So what I tell people all the time is you should absolutely go look at what the job postings in your area would like you to have, find every entry-level position you can find, see what they want. I've even had people go as far as to reach out on LinkedIn to say, I was looking through some jobs in your area. I saw some posted by your company, but it didn't go into a lot of detail about requirements for entry level. What types of things would you like to see? Just to get feedback from those companies. And they might tell you, we want everybody to be Security Plus certified. We want everybody to have a cloud certification. We want everybody to have a Red Hat cert. We want everybody to be Linux knowledgeable. There may be different things depending on the company you're asking, but you might start to get the same answers when you start compiling all this information together. So you might find that 50% of the employers want Security Plus, or 50% of the employers want a Red Hat cert, or 50% of the employers want an Azure cert. Well, there's your direction. If you didn't need a neon sign with the lights flashing going, the next cert should be this one, that's how you figure that out. That's how you really know what the next step should be for you. And what the next steps are for you in your area. You might be in Hamilton, you might be on the other end of Vancouver, you might be somewhere else in the country. Wherever you are, it might be a little bit different because these tend to be sometimes very geographical. So make sure that you go through the process of really understanding what people want where you happen to live. And then you'll be able to make a decision there. Do I want to get a Red Hat cert? I kind of like Linux, but do I like it that much? Other people are asking for Security Plus. That might be something I'm really more interested in. You get to make that decision. And that decision is really based on what employers are looking for. And it's also based on what you would like to do maybe for the rest of your career, or at least part of your career. It can't be the rest of your career. One of the things that's almost universal in this world of IT is we don't tend to do the same thing throughout our entire career. My career started in a technician. I was a field service technician. I was going from place to place and working with hardware and replacing warranty systems and doing that type of thing. and it moved into desktop management. It moved into network administration and eventually moved into cybersecurity. So I would have never thought when I started as a field service tech driving around the roads of South Miami, trying to figure out how to get to a particular place and fighting the traffic on 826, that particular scenario, I could have never thought I would have gotten into cybersecurity, working for these large companies in the Valley, traveling around the world, talking to people about technology, implementing this technology. You just never know. You kind of have to follow the road that's paved right in front of you and follow that path. But everybody has a different path, and everybody has a different set of interests. And one of the great things about technology and information technology in general is you get to decide what you want to do with your career. You have a lot of control over that. Now, granted, employers also have a lot of control, so we kind of have to balance those things out. But it is a great way to find something you like to do and then find a niche in that thing you like to do and really become the expert in that niche. It becomes a very valuable set of skills. It's a set of skills people are willing to pay for, which is really good. And then you get a little bit more flexibility and control over what you want to do with your career. So I would highly recommend you look at what employers want in your area. You're just starting out. You're just looking for that entry-level job, but you should also be looking at the next 2 or 3 jobs in front of you and have a strategy for what you need to get from a certification perspective, from a professional knowledge perspective that will get you to that point. So now's the time to create your strategy. Now build up what you want to do and go after that. And the good part is you can always change or add to it later. That's another great benefit of it. Other questions, other things. There are, I think this is a good one to mention. This always gets the Cisco people mad, so that's always a good thing. The question asks from Aaron, I've been seeing some practice questions mentioning the layers in the OSI model. Is that something we should know for the CompTIA A+ exam? Also, are the OSI model and TCP/IP model the same thing? Boy, this is a good question because it focuses on a couple of areas where there is some, I wouldn't say misunderstanding, but I think there are different parts of our industry that aren't quite as focused on this certification process as perhaps they should be. If you ever have a question on whether something is on the exam or not on the exam, you should always go to the exam objectives. This is the definitive list of what is on your exam. And it is also almost an exclusive list to what is on your exam. In fact, to a T, it's very rarely, very, very rarely do they ever deviate from the topics that are in the exam objectives. Now, other people will tell you that they do deviate from this list without any evidence that they do. But what they'll do is they'll go to the exam objectives and they'll tell you, well, if you look at the very first page of the exam objectives, it says the list of examples provided in bulleted format are not exhaustive lists. Other examples of technologies, processes, or tasks pertaining to each objective may also be included on the exam, although not listed or covered in this objectives document. And so anybody who says, no, we can go outside the scope of this because they tell us in this document that they're going to go outside the scope. Except that's not what they just said, is it? They said that other examples may also be included on the exam. In practical terms, they aren't. They never go outside the scope of this. When the very rare occasions do come up that they've gone outside the scope of this document, it's to ask questions that they're interested in knowing, do you know this topic anyway, even though we didn't ask you about it. It's really more for their own research. And they tell you on their website they do that occasionally. Those questions very commonly aren't even graded. But the exam stays so close to this document that I tell people all the time, if you know every bullet that's listed in these exam objectives, you can point at a bullet, you can tell me about that topic, you can tell someone else about this topic, you can tell it how it fits into the overall scope of IT and when you would use that technology. If you can do that on every bullet, you're going to pass your exam. That's how close they stay to these objectives. You find these objectives on the CompTIA website. Simply go to your favorite search engine, type in CompTIA Exam Objectives, or you can go to professormesser.com/objectives, and I have a link that will take you over to the CompTIA website. They are free to download, and they contain everything you need to know. And I'm not sure why people try to tell others that are studying for the exam that you could be asked something that's off the list of this, when in practical terms, they never do. I don't know why they do that. But if you look at this list, let's go to the networking section. This first networking section deals with port numbers. Here's a section dealing with the different hardware like switches, routers, and other devices. This is the wireless section in 2.3 where you have the different frequencies and standards for wireless. Section 2.4 talks about networked hosts like mail servers, DNS servers, SCADA, IoT. We've got 2.5. That section talks about IP addresses for IPv4, IPv6, API-PA, static, dynamic, and gateway. And then that's the end of the networking. No, the networking section continues. We got DNS, we got DHCP. 2.7 talks about the different network connection types, fiber, cable, cellular, wireless. And then 2.8 talks about the tools like loopback plugs, cable tools, cable testers, that type of thing. Then we're done with the network. So nowhere in there do they talk about the OSI model. So going back to your question about the OSI model, should we know it for the CompTIA A+ exam? Nope, it's not in there. Now, if you talk to someone in the industry, they will tell you, but wait, the OSI model is a foundational model we use to be able to communicate technical ideas to other people and have them really understand what we're talking about. And that OSI model is something that we use all the time to describe problems, to describe implementations, or to describe the way a particular application or protocol happens to work. And they would be correct. Yes, that's exactly true. We use the OSI model all the time to describe this. I talk about layer 7 when I'm talking about applications. If somebody's having a problem with routing, we talk about it as a layer 3 issue. If there's a problem with a cable or fiber, we mention that's a layer 1 problem. That's an OSI answer. But this is an A+ certification, and nowhere in the exam objectives does CompTIA tell you that you need to know anything about the OSI model, which means you don't need to know anything about the OSI model. Now, the people that do training will tell you, well, let's go outside the scope and give you a bigger picture of the world. And I'm sure there's benefit to that. And certainly in your larger scope of what you need to know in the industry and in your career going forward, you will need to know more about the OSI model. There's no question about that. But we're talking about the A+ exam. Our goal here is to get you an A+ certification. And if you want to study the things that are going to be on the exam, you stick to the exam objectives. Later on, there will be plenty of time for you to learn about the OSI model and all of the things associated with the OSI model, but now is not the time. Now is the time to study what's on the A+ exam objectives, and if you stick to those, you will not only have a laser focus on the things you need to know on the exam, you will also, interestingly enough, also be studying exactly what will be expected of you on the exam. And I think that's the important part. From the perspective of, I mentioned making the Cisco people mad, the TCP/IP model, we never use it. We don't use it. The only time you will ever see the TCP/IP model ever used in the form of a model is on training courses. It seems we never use it in the field. We never use it in other documentation. We never use it for anything. The OSI model is what we chose. That's what we use. That's the terms. That's the single language we use to describe the way that data moves across the network is the OSI model. Will you find the TCP/IP model in other training programs like the Cisco? Yes, you will. You absolutely will. Will you ever use it outside in the classroom? You will not. We don't use it. Should we use it? Maybe. There's a fine argument to be made that it's more accurate and more applicable to today's protocols than the older OSI protocol that we wanted to use at one time but never really caught on. And that's the irony of this, of course, is that the OSI model caught on and the OSI protocol did not. But the TCP/IP model did not catch on. And what do we use? TCP/IP. Pretty much everywhere, 100% of the time. So ironic, yes. Challenging sometimes, but OSI is what we use. So that's why the OSI model is there. You will be asked about the OSI model when you get to the Network Plus. So don't worry that we're not talking about it with A+. Don't worry that you don't need to know it for your A+ exam. The only thing you have to worry about from an OSI perspective is when you get to Network Plus, or perhaps the Cisco. Cisco does talk about OSI on theirs as well. So that's useful. And that's good to know anyway. If you're ever wanting to sit down for the exam and really focus your study efforts, focus on what's on the exam objectives. It is a mantra you hear me say all the time: stick to the objectives. Don't go outside the scope of the objectives. If you get some of the questions that you mentioned in this question you just asked, was that you were looking at other questions on other exams and they were asking about the OSI model. I don't know why they do that, because clearly it's not expected of you for the exam and you're not going to get any questions about it on your exam. So why are they asking you about it on a practice exam? It makes no sense. But that's why I have my own study materials, so that we don't have to worry about the stuff that doesn't make sense. We can focus on the things that do make sense. Let's keep going with questions on this. If you'd like to submit your own questions, you can find them on our Vevox. So you can find that at professormesser.com/QA and submit questions there as well. We have a few moments left to answer some more of these that come through. Other questions that are here, since we were kind of talking about career and what we wanted to do and other things that were happening, let's talk what Kenneth is asked about. Kenneth wants to be a cloud engineer. I know that because Kenneth writes, I want to be a cloud engineer. Currently, I'm working on getting my A+. I was recommended to go for certain in Red Hat Linux, CISSP, get a job in network administration or network engineering. What is your opinion on the pathway to get to a cloud engineering position? I think whoever gave you the recommendations for getting your so much knowledge in network administration or network engineering was spot on. They were directing you down the road of not only a set of skills that are going to help you in cloud engineering. In fact, there's a great deal of networking in the cloud, but practically every aspect of IT. If you do anything in IT, it touches the network. And the more you know about the protocols, the processes, the switching, the routing, the way that we get data from one side of the network to the other side of the network, the more of an expert you become in that, the more knowledgeable you will be with every other aspect of IT. And this becomes incredibly important as you get into things like cybersecurity. Let's take, for example, a day in the life of a network security technologist, someone who works in, maybe you work in a Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 company, and you are a network person, or maybe you're planning to be a security person in this Fortune 1000 company. And the day in the life of this security person is going to be around configuring firewall rules, maybe setting up network address translation on that firewall, maybe configuring IPsec tunnels, especially those that are based around routing of traffic through those tunnels. Maybe you're configuring some multi-factor authentication. You're building out a link between different security components and a SIEM. That would be a security information and events management device where you're transferring logs and creating reports. Maybe you're building out and creating policies on these things. All of these things that I just mentioned are all touching the network, and there's a huge networking component to it. Our firewalls certainly have a huge foundational requirement for knowledge in the networking side, not only for the building and planning of those devices, but also configuring routing tables, IP addresses, network address translation, and configuring routes for IPsec tunnels and making sure that the routes that we've set up for static routing are able to work properly through those IPsec tunnels. That's a huge networking task. That's more networking than it is security, I think, in many ways. So we've been asked, set up this IPsec tunnel. Well, how do we do that? Do we set up and configure different IP addresses? Do we set up a different route across that tunnel? Where do we build that route? Where does it need to live? Is it a dynamic route that we need to push out to other routers? Is it a static route that we need to add on other routers or other firewalls? So there's a huge networking piece we need to know for not on top of that, there's of course all the little things. Do we have the subnetting correct? Are we using the correct subnet ID? Are we configuring this for enough devices on that subnet? There's all your subnetting tools and tasks that you're going to learn with Network Plus. So you're certainly going to run into scenarios where networking is going to be incredibly important, not just for everything else you do in IT, but if you're interested in being a cloud engineer, yep, you're going to need to know a lot of good things in the cloud. The other piece of advice you got that I thought was really good here is they said, I was recommended to go get a Red Hat Linux certification and perhaps even CISSP, although CISSP is sort of a longer term certification, one that you would only be able to earn after getting some practical experience in the industry, because that's a certification that there is gatekeeping for that cert. You have to be working in the industry for a certain amount of time to get that certification. But the Red Hat Linux, or really Linux in general, is a very popular technology for the cloud. It's used almost, I won't say extensively, but it is used a great deal in the cloud, probably just as much as other operating systems in the cloud. And that's why you see a lot of Windows in the cloud and you see a lot of Linux in the cloud. It helps to know both of these. So although they said Linux, I would also add to this mix a good knowledge of Windows, because you're going to run into Windows in the cloud too. And in fact, often the challenges that you get with cloud-based technologies is to have the Linux and the Windows talk to each other, not just from a data transfer perspective, but in every other way. How do you manage these devices? How do you set them up? How do you upgrade them? How do you make sure that they're able to communicate to each other? Often we need the Linux device to be able to access data that's in our Active Directory database. How do you do that? There are some very, very well-known and easy ways to make that happen, but you have to know how to set that up and get that running. And once you set it up, it works beautifully. So knowing Red Hat Linux, knowing Windows is going to be also important from a cloud perspective. Maybe not Mac OS. Mac OS is not one of those that we're building out in the cloud to provide us with those services. Mac OS tends to be that local operating system, but it's one that knowing all three of those can be very, very valuable for your IT career. You're probably going to carry around a Mac anyway because it just works better than Linux. Because it does. We'll have a knife fight over that anytime, but I think that's pretty solid. I think that's why you see a lot of cloud engineers, a lot of security engineers carrying around a device that's a Mac OS device, because it avoids a lot of the security problems associated with Windows, but it also provides an ease of use along with the flexibility of a Unix-based operating system that is something that comes in very, very handy when you're in those particular roles. So that is, of course, a good place to go. It sounds like, Kenneth, you got very good advice. I would say go with that advice. You can't go wrong getting Linux knowledge. You can't go wrong getting knowledge of the networking. You're solid either way to not only work with the cloud, but other technologies in IT. And I think that'd be a great place to go. Hopefully that's given you that stamp of approval, whatever that's worth, is one that certainly works there. Okay, my Canadian friends are also asking questions. Avril asks, as a woman, I'm a little scared to dive into a predominantly male-dominated industry. Have you ever been approached by women wanting to get into IT, or have any advice for women who are trying to break into tech? I'm close to getting my A+, and also in Canada. And I will let Mrs. Professor Messer know you checked in. A couple of things. Now, this is something that has been talked about in the industry for a very long time. And it is true that if you were to look around at IT in general, especially on the networking and security side, it does tend to be, there's a lot of guys in this industry, a lot of male dominated, from a percentage perspective, from a population perspective, it's a lot of male and relatively few women. I don't know what the statistics are for this. 75-25 maybe. I don't know if I'm too far off on that one. 2/3, 1/3 male to women, something like that. If that many, if that much, and probably even more skewed in different individual areas like pen testing or other types of roles. That certainly is a concern. In fact, you will see in our industry, there is a big push to get more people involves, especially women involved in technology, because it tends to be, and at least in my mind, technology tends to be this logic-based troubleshooting role that anybody is good for. Anybody can work in that role. There are plenty of, whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter, because it's not something that requires you to have a certain strength or to have a certain characteristic that is specific to gender. Instead, it's one that is about your mind. It's about your brain. And that's perfect for anybody, whether you're male or female. So this is one where if you look around at the industry, there is a push to get more women. I see it generically to get more into STEM. That's the STEM, being able to be that science and technology, engineering. So that is certainly a push in the industry. And one of the things I noticed recently is that Cisco is planning in their next event. They do a lot of Cisco Live and Cisco events around the country and around the world, is they have a special area where they've carved out technology so that you can get more stories about what women are doing in our industry with security, with networking, and the interesting things that they are building on the development side, so that you can get a perspective. I think one of the things that has always helped me in the industry, has always helped me with my career in general, is sometimes you don't know that it's possible to do something until you see someone else do it. This is something that happens from a technology perspective, even from a perspective of someone working on the keyboard. Have you ever seen somebody sit down at a keyboard and suddenly they are typing away? They are just going at amazing rates of speed, to the point where I think to myself, I didn't even know you could type that fast. I didn't even know you were able to do that so quickly. But once you see someone do it, you realize, oh, well, maybe I can do that. Maybe I can get my speeds up that fast. If someone else can do it, certainly I can work on those and be able to do it as well. And the same thing applies to your knowledge of technology, your position in your career, the things you're working at in IT. The capabilities are there, and being able to learn from other people who are doing it may give you the ideas of, well, I can do that too. I think that from, if I can talk from the guy's perspective from a moment, we also need to be better about including everybody in that particular area. We're guys. I don't know how to say it any differently. As it turns out, and I know this may be controversial, men and women are different. Not just different physically, but we're different in how we act. Men don't tend to act well. We tend to be men sometimes in the workplace because there's so many other men around. Sometimes we say things that are fine when you're in front of other men, but not when you're other places. Professionalism in the industry, we need to take it up a notch. That's what I'm saying. We need to be better with our professionalism and more inclusive with how we talk about things in the industry. And I think that sort of works in any case. Even if it's a room full of men, I would prefer it if we were all professional and we were talking to each other, and it's not just a bunch of jokes about, our bodies, if I may. So that's something I run into, and I wish we did a better job of in the industry. And I think we are doing a better job in the industry, quite honestly. I have gone into meetings with some of the biggest companies in the world and some of the smallest companies in the world and talked about technology and security and networking and network management. And we have had fantastic conversations of people who are both men and women. And I've worked with incredibly smart and incredibly talented people who are both men and women in this industry. It really doesn't matter what your gender is. You just need to create an environment in your workplace that is one that everybody could work in. And that way we are all going to be working towards our career and working with this technology and enjoying what we do, regardless of whether we're a man or a woman in this field. So I think, don't worry so much about diving into this man's world of technology. It's really a world of technology that a lot of men happen to be in. You need to now change that and bring in more of the, quite honestly, the guys would kind of like to maybe have some different perspectives in the industry. Sitting in a room full of guys day after day after day is also not really that enjoyable for us either. So it would be nice on occasion to actually have some different perspectives brought into the room. And that would be a great way to do it. I highly recommend you do that. Look at what Cisco's doing. Do Cisco, search for Cisco and STEM or Cisco and women in technology. They're doing amazing things with that lately. And I know I talked badly about the Cisco things that was really tongue-in-cheek earlier. What I've seen them do most recently along those lines has been very, very good. So have a look at that. Some great things they're putting out there. And if you can't find it, send me a note directly. Go to the Contact Us link at the top of my website. I just saw this the other day because I was looking at going to a Cisco event that's local in my particular area. I'm in the Central Florida area, so there's a lot of Cisco stuff that comes through constantly, and I want to be sure I know when that comes into town so I can go see what's happening on those sides too. I already have it in my inbox, so if you can't find it, just let me know. I know we're at the top of the hour. Let me see if I can get through another question because I've still got my throat, still got my voice. It's still working. So we're going to keep going down this list of things and see what else might be here. Let's see. This is a pretty good one because now this is a little different than what most people will think. This is from Trevor, who says, I've landed multiple jobs without any certs or education experience, only hands-on experience. I'm currently in a job that I'll be staying at for a long time. Would it be wise for me to get the A+ to show that I know what I'm doing? Or should I skip it and go to Network Plus, which is what I would like to do next if I took the A+ instead? So this is a scenario that I think a lot of people go through. I think I even went through this myself in my career where I'm in a role and I got there because of the things I was doing earlier. I mentioned earlier one of my first jobs was a field service technician where I would drive around South Florida, plugging in cables and replacing memory and swapping out hard drives and doing a lot of warranty repairs. And that was a great job. You learn a lot. You meet a lot of interesting people. And then while I was doing that, I worked with a company. I met a company that was a large insurance company in town. And I started to know those people very well because they had thousands of computers and I was in there constantly swapping something out, replacing something. And they could see that, hey, he seems to know what he's doing. Well, yeah, I've been doing this every day and constantly being very familiar with how quick we could swap a hard drive out. It was like a rodeo. Swap it out. Well done. Stop the clock. We got it out in record time. That's something you just do because you needed to get to the next thing that was on your list. You need to hop in the car and hit the roads of South Florida to try to get to where your next stop was. And they said, we want you to work here. You need to be one of our technicians on site. You could work for the company and do things here. So I got that job. There were no certs at that time. A+ did not exist because dinosaurs ruled the earth. I did have educational experience. I had a degree, but my degree was in business management. It was not in a technical field. I did not have a programming degree. I did not have an IT degree, or at the time, information management degree. I only had my experience. And so I got that job with experience. So I can empathize or at least understand some of the things Trevor's mentioning. The question, though, was about, now what do we do? I'm in this job. Do I go get an A+ now, even though I'm effectively doing the job that an A+ person would be doing? Or, as Trevor mentions, Network Plus is what you want to do next. So I think if you're someone who is a hiring manager in your organization and you're watching what everybody's doing, you already have your A+. You could probably study very quickly and get your A+ cert, but what's that going to give you? Would anybody care if you had your A+ at this point? Probably not much. You certainly would. And if you were going to another company, if you were looking around thinking, this company, this is not where I want to stay. There's things about this company I'm not comfortable with, or I'd prefer working for another company. I'm probably going to leave here in the next year. Maybe A+ would be a good thing to put in your pocket because then you could use that along with your experience to show another employer that's what you'd like to do. But in your case, Trevor mentioned, I like this place. I'm going to stay for a long time. And if that's the case and they're hiring networking people, go get your Network Plus. Maybe talk to the network team and ask them, hey, if there was an open position on the network team right now, what type of credentials would you be looking for? Would you be looking for Network Plus, a Cisco? Would you be looking for a Microsoft cert? Should I have Linux experience? What do you need? What are you looking for? They'll tell you. They're happy to tell you. So that's certainly a good place to go to make that happen. And I think if you're someone who is wanting to move through the industry, and as I mentioned earlier, networking knowledge, that's going to be a rocket ship to a career, a potential rocket ship to a career, because as I mentioned, everything starts and ends on the network. And if you want to get into network management, if you want to manage switches, a wide area network, do routing, or do anything that's in security, the cloud, and beyond, you need a good foundation in networking. So I think getting your Network Plus is a great idea. Knowing nothing else about your story. As I mentioned, and I always mention here, I don't know what people want. I don't know what employers in your area are looking for. I don't know what your employer is looking for. But generically, broadly speaking, in the scenarios that we're talking about here, I think getting a networking knowledge can do nothing but help you and propel you towards what that next thing is going to be. That might be the Network Plus. It might be another network-based certification, but ask the networking team. One of the things that I've always done when I've been in these companies, and I've been working in a role and I've thought I want to keep moving up in this organization, is I've gone to talk to the people that are part of the organization that I would like to join later. So maybe I'm working on the workstation team, and I talk to the server guys and say, I want to be a server administrator, or I want to be a network administrator. So I go talk to the server team or go talk to the networking team and ask them, what do I need to know to be able to work with you guys? And what projects do you have coming up that you might need another pair of hands? Or can I look over your shoulder at the things you're doing? Or can you help explain to me as you go what you're doing so that I have some knowledge that I can then put in my pocket, and then later on maybe pull that out and be able to use it for something else that I'm doing? I think all of those would be useful to know. If you want to know, should you skip A+? Probably. Should you work towards getting a networking certification? Probably. The real tell, the people that are going to be able to give you the definitive answer, which is not me, are the people that currently have those positions within your organization. They'll tell you. They'll be glad to tell you. They're more than happy to let you know, oh, if you want to work here, you're going to need this and this and this. Go get those things, and then we'll be ready to get you on board with what we're doing here. That'll at least position you well. The benefit here is also, let's say you already said you want to be in this company for a long period of time, but there may be things happening in the industry or with your company. Things change. And maybe a year from now, maybe you are looking to go somewhere else. Having that networking knowledge is going to be very useful on that next job that you hit outside of this organization. So I think that would be a good place to maybe focus and get an idea of where the best place to go would be with those. I think that's probably where I would go too. That's the great thing about IT, of course, is that you got a lot of choices. You got a lot of options. And every single one of those options generally keeps moving you up the ranks. You keep leveling up in IT. You keep getting more knowledge, which makes you more valuable, which tends to also bring in more money, where you can now learn more and then learn more and just keep moving up. That's one of the things that I love about this industry. And I tell people all the time, today we're talking about A+. This is not the end of your career. This is not one where you get a job working at a help desk and that's what you do for the rest of your IT career, which never happens. This is one where you will constantly be learning. There will never be a time where you're not learning something in this industry. And if you're someone who's not really into that, maybe this isn't for you, because we are always having to keep up with what the latest technologies are. We're always learning something interesting. It should be interesting to you to be able to do that as well, because you're troubleshooting, you're solving problems, you're designing new implementations of these technologies. And the only way you can do that is if you keep doing that and learning throughout your entire IT career. And if, for me, I always found it interesting. I always found it something fun to read about, it's fun to learn, implementing it, setting up labs, making all of those things happen. And if you're not someone who is wanting to learn that, then maybe staying at the ranks of a help desk would be fine. But for most of us, I think we want to learn more. I think we want to do more. And I think we want to extend our view of the technology world. And as it turns out, doing that also means that we can move up within our career and our jobs as well. And That's always a good thing too. Well, hopefully it's given you some things to think about as we go through this task of earning our A+ certification and beyond. But we're not done, of course. Today was our Core 1 study group. Tomorrow, very rarely do I do back-to-back. Tomorrow is a back-to-back study group. We will do Core 2 questions for you tomorrow, and I have all new questions that we've written specifically for that study group. We'd love for you to come back and learn more on tomorrow's live stream. Of course, we will always have replays available if you would like to watch it once we are done. They're always on our website. You can follow along with us there as well at ProfessorMesser.com. If you enjoyed this video, we'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. We'd love it even more if you subscribe to our channel and keep up with the things that we are doing at ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. And come on back tomorrow for our Core 2 study group. Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everybody.